Hi everybody, so in the last video we started building out our form, and so if you remember we built out just a quick HTML file, heading, and a form tag. And so I want to show you that we finished building this part, and there's nothing on the page. Like I said in the last video, the form tag is a wrapper, and so it doesn't have any visual content of its own. All the visual content is going to be made by the elements you put inside the form. And again, like I talked about, the form element can take any types of HTML elements inside of it, just like any other wrapper. Divs, lists, whatever. But there are special types of HTML elements that actually make a form work. And the main ones are labels and inputs and buttons. So we'll talk about each of those. So starting with the simplest, the simplest form element is a label. And so the idea of a label, as you might imagine, is to label stuff. Specifically, labels are for input tags, and we'll see some special behavior with this in a second. But if we save this and go to the page, we will see a label pop up, name, and that'll bring us to the main part of the show for HTML forms, which is the input tag. And so input tags are actually what you will be typing into in a form. So anywhere you've typed stuff on the internet, type something into making a Facebook post or a Google search, that was actually an HTML input. That's what was capturing what you were typing. And so if we refresh the page, we will see the little text box popped up that we can type stuff into now. And so note that an input tag is self-closing. It doesn't have something like / input to close it. It is just input with nothing. And there are some special attributes that make inputs behavior work in certain ways. So the first one we'll talk about is the type. And so by default, all inputs are type text, just meaning that this is a text field that you're able to type text into. However, there are tons of different kinds of types for inputs. So just as an example, inputs could also be a checkbox. And now you won't have something that you can type into. You'll have a checkbox. They could be a password. And as you've probably seen on the internet before, as you type into it, you won't see the letters that you're typing. You just see little dots. So the type attribute defines what kind of input this is going to be. And based on the type, you could have some different pieces of behavior. So we're going to leave it as a text. And now that we have our label and our input on the form, let's talk about labels, special behavior, and the semantics behind it. So by itself, label doesn't really do anything besides put some text on the page. But we can give label a special attribute called for, and we can label didn't mean to pun that, but we can say specifically which text field this label is for. That's why it's called for. And so if we say this is for name, and so string name, that means it's looking for an input with an ID of name. So by itself, this won't do anything because there is no input with an ID of name. But if we go to our input here and add ID equals name and refresh, Now when we click on name, it will automatically focus on this input. So there's some accessibility niceties with that. If you're blind and you're using a screen reader to read the internet, this will read out a lot better. It'll say what this input is for, and help guide to this, or what this label is for, and help guide it to the right input. So the for attribute ties with an ID attribute on an input. So very important. So we'll end the video here, and we will go more into building this form in the next video.